Hey, this is Mike, Seder 42 Vinyl. I am here again with Roger, and we are going to do episode 4 of Amplified Assignments. We are still going. This is cool. Yeah.
Dozens of fans can't be wrong.
This is Amplified Assignments, episode 4, and Roger and I have given each other an album to listen to over the past 2.5 weeks this time, and we are going to discuss the albums that we were given. I gave Roger the Anthrax album For All Kings. This is an album that it's the latest album from Anthrax, actually. Even though it came out in 2016, it's a little bit older now, but it's the last album that Anthrax put out. I think this album is awesome, so I gave this to Roger. We kind of have a theme of a thrash metal exchange this week, and Roger gave me, what did you give me, Roger, to listen to?
I gave you History of a Time to Come, the 1988 debut from Sabbath.
It's interesting. You gave me an older thrash metal album, and I gave you a newer thrash
Mhm.
metal album, so it's kind of cool
Mhm.
that it worked out that way.
Yeah, very. Yeah, I guess I really just have to start with just kind of, and you might repeat some of this, but our how we came across this band, and at the same time, I remember being at the townhouses, and I remember walking up to Macomb Mall. I think you bought it on cassette. I think we were thinking some more like power metal-y or something is what we
Yeah,
thought,
yeah.
just because or something. I don't know what we thought, but when we got back to your townhouse, we popped that tape in. It was not what we thought what it was going to sound like, but we thought immediately this is awesome, and we were huge fans, and we still are. Dreamweaver is a great album, and my next step. After I got Dreamweaver as well, was like, well, they got a first album, and I bought that album and I had that tape. And I listened to it and I was like, oh my God, this rules too. And I listened to it all the time and I kept listening to it. And I listened to both of them. And they've always been like, to me, they go together. And I don't remember any specific like you dislike for it or anything. I just knew you didn't have it. And I know you've been just always kind of dismissive of it whenever I brought it up. That's probably a few times over the years I've said, like, oh man, that first one, you're like, meh. So I've just been like, what the hell? So I assigned this to you because I never claimed that it's as good as Dreamweaver, but it's an awesome record. It's got a few goofy songs that are okay. I think when it's good, it's just as good as Dreamweaver. It's just not consistently good like that. I don't know if anyone knows about Sabbath. I assume if you're watching this, you hopefully do. British band. Andy Sneap went to do on a lot of other things and is a big time producer. And this was his first band. He was a teenager. They were all really young, English band.
All right.
So
Well,
that's why I assigned it to you. I like the record. That's a little bit what I know about the record. I don't know intensive research about it. I just know that I've listened to it 100 times over the years.
so my preconceived notion, so I remember blind buying this. Obviously, there was no way for us to hear what it sounded like. We may have had a description in Metal Maniacs, but
Yeah.
that would have been the most that we would have had at that time. So yeah, when we bought it and we brought it home, and I believe it has that acoustic intro kind
Mhm.
of part. This is talking about Dreamweaver, and then yeah, that the drums and that thrash riff kicked in, and
Mhm.
Paul Pierce's vocals. We were just like, what is this? And he was just shouting so fast. And the lyrics, we didn't have I don't think the cassette had the lyrics. So it was really cool when we got the lyrics.
I specifically remember waiting for that to come out on compact disc
Yeah.
just so we had lyrics. I do
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, because that album has a ton of lyrics, like, paragraphs for a verse. And that was the way, and that's the way this album is too, kind of. It's a little bit less, but the way that he sings, it's still the same.
So why did you avoid this album for all these years?
Okay, the main reason I can think of is that Dreamweaver was so good, right? The bar was set so high that when I first listened to History of a Time to Come, I feel like when we purchase something like this, if we purchased another thing, either from the same band or in the same genre, we expected it to be similar. I don't know that, at least for me, I can really only say for myself, when it varied too much, I was disappointed. If I bought the album, I would take the time and listen to it, and I would end up probably liking it for the most part. But when I didn't buy it and I just, listened to your
Heard
copy
mine.
or something, yeah, I was just
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not stuck with it, so I don't have to. If it didn't hit me right away, like you said, I became a little maybe dismissive of it, or I thought, yeah, it's okay, but it's not Dreamweaver. I have Dreamweaver at home. I can go listen to one of the best albums, thrash metal albums ever made. Why do I want to listen to History of a Time to Come?
Mhm.
Obviously, later, now I want to appreciate the history of music, and the progression of a band is interesting and more, yeah, I guess just more interesting and fun to experience. Yeah.
It makes sense to me, but it's still, I guess it always just irritated me.
I do appreciate this album more, definitely for sure. Andy Sneap and Martin, I think they were the main creative force in the band.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of groundwork that was laid here that you can, get why Dreamweaver was so good. Let's start with the negatives because there isn't a lot. So some of the negatives, number one is the production. I don't know how they got away with it on Dreamweaver, but I feel like Noise as a label, I have several original presses of Noise stuff, and all of it sounds not good, especially when you try to play it on better equipment. It just sounds
Mhm.
even worse. You're just like, this production is awful. It sounds like the music is all smashed together. Everything is at the same level. And this album, though, it does sound better as a Noise record. And maybe it's just because Sneap was already kind of smart about that stuff. And maybe he really, was like, I need this to sound a certain way. So production was okay on this album, but it could have been better. And I think that was another reason why I thought it was just okay back then. I felt like it just didn't have that thicker sound of the guitar, and you could hear the guitar, the bass, and the drums and the vocals really well. Dreamweaver, where I don't know that I hear much bass at all, and like I said, it could be from streaming, but that guitar tone is very thin, but that does make it crisp. I would say that it does sound, it's right up there, right up front, but it just
Mhm.
doesn't have oomph to it. The singing, Martin's singing is probably similar, but better recorded on Dreamweaver, but I think it's okay here. And I put, like, for a first album out of the gate, these guys wrote an excellent album. But the problem with Sabbath, and the problem with anything that Sabbath puts out, is Dreamweaver is to me, it's a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10, 100%, right? I say that a lot with certain things. So anything they put out has to get compared to that. And, when you, when you make a 10 and then you listen to everything else is like, it's way lower. I think it's rare. It can happen, but it's sometimes rare for a band to, make a bunch of 10 out of 10s. Sabbath History of a Time to Come compared to Dreamweaver, if Dreamweaver's a 10 out of 10, or let's use 5 out of 5 because we're using 5-star ratings, I'm going to rate this album already. I'm going to talk about songs, but this album is a 3.5, probably 3.5 in comparison. Now,
Okay.
I'm going to say, now let's go through the songs and I'll kind of explain why to me.
Okay.
Cautionary Tale, Bell Book Candle, Candle Book Bell, freaking great. That song is really, really, really good. It's a great opening track. It's
Yeah, it
similar
is.
to Dark Horses, where right out of the
Yeah.
gate, what Sabbath's about. So that's good. So that's a highlight on the album. I have a little asterisk next to that one because that's a highlight. Hosanna in Excelsis, I would say, is not as memorable. It's still a good song. It's a
Mhm.
good thrasher. The riff is just not there, and there isn't as good of a chorus on that one. But it's
Okay.
still not a bad song. To me, it's a filler song. Behind the Crooked Cross, I read the lyrics to that. Pretty sure that song's about the Nazis. He wrote a lyric on there and he said, "Warning, do not mock the Crooked Cross. Its power still, exists." I thought that was really interesting with the time that we're in, now. I was like, that's kind
Yeah.
of, that he's like, talking about neo-Nazis kind of back then, in 88, because that was kind of around. And, obviously
Yeah.
right now that's still, kind of a thing. I thought those lyrics were very, interesting to me. At first I was like, oh, he's thinking about the Nazis, interesting. But then he was kind of getting philosophical about it. I was like, okay.
It ends good. I think it starts off being kind of hokey. It's kind of a corny song when it starts, but it ends really well because the lyric shift kind of changes.
It's still a good song. I would say, though, musically, it's just a good thrash song. Again, it seems like a filler song. Lyrically, I think it's good, but there isn't a good hook in there. Horn to the Hunter is another one of the really good songs, I think.
Yeah.
It's got a good riff at about 4.5 minutes, and I'll play clips and stuff like that. There's a really good kind of breakdown, a good riff part there that I like. And yeah, that was one of the highlights of that song. It had a little bit more memorable parts to it, but it still wasn't, I still felt like it was just okay. I think this album plays better in the background when I'm doing something else and I have this album on the background. Like, I have company over on the weekends and I put my assignment on in the background while we're playing, games or hanging out or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And
cool.
While I'm doing that, hanging out, we're talking, both of us were like, sometimes we're like, oh, that was really cool. And then we'd move on, and do our thing, so like that would happen frequently with this album, parts would pop up. When I sit down and listen to it, when I sit in my chair, my lazy boy, I put the album on and I start reading the lyrics and I start trying to get into it. Those parts still happen, but I realize that the parts that I wasn't paying attention to, the parts that didn't perk my ears weren't that good, in some cases. And it kind of makes me realize, okay, this album has moments, but all the way through, it's not, it's a little bit of a roller coaster. And I think that Hosanna, Behind the Crooked Cross, and Horn is the Hunter, there's pieces in there that I like, but as a whole, those songs aren't holding my attention. Cautionary Tale is opposite. That song holds my attention the whole time. Yeah. It's really good. It's and the next song, Eye for an Eye, that song is actually really good. Has a really good riff on it. I realized there's 2 songs on here. I realized that these guys probably listen to Maiden quite a bit because I can't imagine they were not Maiden fans, because this song has several parts, and I'll play, there's a piece of the song that sounds just like Iron Maiden. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. They have like a galloping kind of riff in there, and I'm like, it just reminds me of Iron Maiden, like even early Iron Maiden, like Diano era. And the same for my favorite song on the album, which is For Those Who Died. I think that song is so good. It's very Maiden. It has a great chorus, very memorable riff. It has a lot of ingredients. It's kind of a different song for them too. It almost sticks out on the album a little bit, but it's still really good and it's still a Sabbath song. I kind of think that they kind of make it a Sabbath song, but it feels like they were maybe trying to do something else there. I don't know, but it was still a very great song. My favorite song on the album, Highlight.
Innocent, a guilty bruise will burn you just the same. Burning into the fire. Burning a funeral pyre. Burning into the fire. Burning a funeral pyre.
Dead Man's Robe that has like a spoken word part in there, but it's mostly instrumental. That's okay. It does have a good riff. It's mid-pace thrasher. I did like that. It's okay. And Church Bazaar, fun lyrics, kind of not as memorable of a song. There's not really much of a riff there. It seems like they were just trying to be fun and funny, ripping on, what a lot of thrash bands ripped on, televangelism and whatever. Yeah, I did like the album overall. I think that there's pieces in there where you can see, there's like, I would say flashes of brilliance or whatever, or something like that. I feel like this album set the stage for Dreamweaver. That's one thing I wanted to say is I feel like, there's pieces in there that are interesting. But yeah, I feel like Sabbath has influenced, a bunch of bands that are still going today. And yeah, I would give this album probably, like I said early on, probably a 3.5 out of 5. It's a really good thrash album for the time. But, if you're going to buy a Sabbath album and, times are tough with money, definitely pick up Dreamweaver over this. But
well, for sure,
if you're a fan, though,
and I would ask you if this gets reissued, which it's in dire need of, if it gets reissued, would this be something that you'd pick up?
Yeah, I would pick it up. I would pick it up kind of to have it in the collection, pop it on every once in a while. It's a good album. Like I said, it has really good moments on it.
I think this is exactly what I mostly wanted to hear. I probably would give it 4, but I don't think we're that far off.
No, probably not.
And I think my extra half star is probably just a little sentiment.
Did you have anything else to say as far as the album and my take on it?
No, not really. I think we're pretty much in agreement on it. I think I like the sound a little better. Like I think I like that kind of thin, shitty 80s sound sometimes. It almost just sounds like a demo to me. And I like stuff like that, that has like, sometimes I like poor production, especially on something that's really aggressive. I think that might be one of the things we differ on it, but I think pretty much our opinions are mostly aligned on it. I think there's moments of brilliance. There's a couple chuckle songs. There's parts in the other songs that are like, oh yeah, this part rules. It's just, I've listened to it so many times. It's very, very familiar to me at this point. So if this album was really familiar to you and, I wouldn't force you to listen to it, that many times, of course. But if you did, you would eventually know every part of it and you'd probably like it a lot more. But who knows?
All right. So that's our discussion on Sabbath and my experience listening to that album. So now we're going to go and talk about the album that I gave Roger to listen to. And that is the Anthrax 2016 album, their last album that they put out, their most recent release. This is For All Kings. This album really, really surprised me when I first listened to it. It was right after I bought my turntable and I started looking at, albums and stuff that were out on vinyl. And I was looking at new stuff. And at the FYE that's over here at the mall, they had this. They actually had the Heaven and Hell album from Dio and Iommi and those guys. Bought that from there. Yeah, I bought the new Blind Guardian. So I bought like a bunch of stuff from there, kind of like newer releases because that's what they had. And then when I first listened to this album, I was like, wow, this sounds really good. And I started streaming it, in the car and stuff. And I would just have it on a loop because like all the songs were hitting me really hard. And I was like, this album is like really a throwback to the late 80s, early 90s version of Anthrax. It didn't sound anything like the John Bush era stuff. It really felt like it was a continuation of the Belladonna stuff, even before Time, because I feel like Time is a different sounding album. It's written a little bit differently than their previous stuff. So it kind of stands out to me a little bit more than their other stuff. This album feels like it fits right in there with the Among the Living and State of Euphoria, and then this album could have came right after that, like right in between. So I really like this album, and when we were going to do thrash metal, I thought it would be a good idea. You know, Roger was going to give me an old album. I was like, you know what? I gave him a choice between this and Overkill, Ironbound. I think both those albums are great. And Roger picked Anthrax, which I was actually surprised and happy because I figured Overkill, the Ironbound, was kind of a slam dunk. So I wasn't sure how Roger would enjoy newer Anthrax. So I'm interested to hear your experience of listening to this album for about a week and a half now.
So I was very aware of this record when this came out. You said 2016. I was listening to, probably during that whole tens, I was listening to a lot of Sirius XM, and I was listening to a lot of Liquid Metal. And the album before this, what's the one that came before this?
Worship Music, yeah.
You know, I think I heard it through the news that like, oh, Joey was back in the band, and they played a couple songs off Worship Music on Liquid Metal, and I didn't think it was very good. I remember thinking like, one, I just didn't think Joey sounded good. I was like, he doesn't sound good. Like, you know, maybe I don't know what he was up to. Apparently with that album, he got called in at the last minute. Maybe his pipes were not that strong. Maybe I don't know what he was doing before that. You know, your vocals are an instrument. You know, you have to work at it. I don't know if it's just pipes were not as good on that accurate record, or I think a lot of those records, that part of that record was written for Bush. I'm also not a fan of the John Bush stuff at all. And so I heard those songs and I was like, man, I wish I liked this. And then a few years later, when For All Kings came out, they played a few songs on there a lot. They played Breathing Lightning a lot. And they played Evil Twin a lot. And I want to say that they played Monster at the end too, but I'm not positive on that. And I liked it. I was like, wow, this is way better than what I heard before. Like, it immediately hit me. And I thought that was it. I think when you gave it to me, I thought that was it. But then later on, I remembered that I think I went down, you know, into my office and put some headphones on and streamed it. And I think I was kind of bored by it. I think I was just kind of like, I thought this would be better. And I never gave it another thought. Occasionally, you know, the time went on, they played those songs less often, but they would play it occasionally. I'd be like, oh yeah, this song kicks ass. So I was glad. I had thought for a long time, I should go back and recheck that album out. Every time I'd hear a song, I should go check that out. I was glad that you offered it. I was like, oh yeah, that was an easy pick for me. Surprised you a little bit, but that was an easy pick for me. So my preconceived notions was I was very intrigued. Before like my metal world expanded to like Europe, Anthrax was probably my favorite band. You know, through the power of editing, you can throw a picture up here, me at 15 years old, you know, wearing my State of Euphoria shirt, proudly holding a bullhead caught in Lake Arcadia in northern Michigan. They were my favorite band. I remember having that NFV video, and when it opens up and the strobe lights are going and they're playing Among the Living, I remember just thinking that was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I really loved them, and I love Persistence of Time. I was a huge fan of that record. I think I'm a bigger fan of that record than you, and that's one of my top 3 Anthrax albums, if not top 2 for sure. But then I just don't like the Bush stuff, and so I was a huge fan. Then I just stopped caring. So that was my initial impression. I wanted to like this, so I'll just get right into it. I do really like this record. It's actually quite true. This is a good record. I think it took a little while to grow on me. I think it took the first listen, I was kind of feeling much the same of when I first listened to it that first time. And I kind of forgotten, it's been a few years since I've heard those songs on Liquid Metal. So Breathing Lightning came on and I got excited. I was like, oh yeah, I know this song. It's a good song. And then Evil Twin came on and I was like, oh my God, and I just was like headbanging throughout all of Evil Twin. I think I immediately texted you. I was like, Evil Twin's the best song on the album.
Your head's on the block and still you threaten. Wretched way of life of those that choose and abuse. Nothing worth believing in. Stopping nothing, counting nothing. Empty words, false untrue. In your own, it was gone. Look what you did, so fucking sick is what you did. The evil twin of the
I probably listened to it about 5 or 6 times total. And every time it got better. And like by the fourth time, I was like, yeah, I kind of had initial thoughts that are long deleted because I changed a lot of my thoughts in my little spreadsheet matrix that I have. So yeah, I think like some of the songs that I was like, this is not one of my favorite songs. I took, no, this is a really good song. Like I changed my mind on that. I think it's a really good record. I think to kind of what you did to go with the negatives first, there's only one song I will say that I don't like on it. There's a few that are just meh, but there's only one song that I can strictly give a thumbs down to, and that would be Defend Avenge. I don't like that song. It sounds kind of just like a groove metal song. I just don't like it. It just kind of aesthetically really turns me off, and it never got better. My favorite songs on the album would be Evil Twin for sure. I would probably say You Gotta Believe would probably be another favorite song.
You cannot scream it, or you can give me. Wow, wow. I'm gonna get it either way. And I can't let it be viciously relentless. Pursuit of vengeance, and I won't let it be viciously impaled. Watch out hell, it's just a bag of blood and I'm holding the nail. You gotta believe, impaled. And I never fail, you're just a bag of blood and I'm holding the nail. You gotta believe.
And then the last song, Zero Tolerance, is probably is the next favorite song. Oh, so the pros. Number one pro of the album, kind of funny because it's the same thing I said last week. Joey Belladonna. He unbelievably shines in this record. Is he the greatest singer in the world? No, he is not. But damn, is he good on this record. I don't know what magic was pulled out, but that would be one of the comebacks of all time. Like, he's great on this record. I think it's just a really good heavy metal record. That's just the other one of my pros list I have. I'm like, this is just a really good banger. Like I said, up to like Evil Twin, I'm just like, this album really, really, really rips. The songs you gave me, You Gotta Believe, which is one of the best songs on the album. Monster at the End, I wouldn't call it one of the best songs on the album, but it fits in well in that first side. I'm gonna call it's probably side 1+1 or something. It's probably not quite, but like that first, it fits in well, all of those together. At some point, I was going to call Suzerain as one of my least favorite songs, and I totally changed my mind. That's a song that I probably on listen 4 or 5, I 180'd on. And I was like, no, this is good.
It's everything was wrong with it. It's everything was wrong with it. No, with this grin, beyond death, and it's after me. So insane, Suzerain, and he's calling. Nothing is over, nothing is over, nothing is over, nothing is over. Come see with me as everything turns. Nothing is over, nothing is over, nothing is over, it only starts over. You'll see with me as everything turns. Comes after, what comes after me?
You gave me Blood Eagle Wings, and I don't think it's a bad song at all. In fact, it's growing on me. I will say that. Every time I listen to it, I like it a little more. I chuckle because I would not call this song a ballad, but I kind of joked as I was like, he always gives me the ballad because it's kind of the ballad of the album almost.
Everything's been said. Walk among the dead. You can see my crime. This is my design. There's no right or wrong. It's the same old song. Just keep pounding me. It's so hard. Hell is empty.
And I just think like even the last like the All of Them Thieves and The Battle Chose Us, they're good, but they're not the best songs on the record. And I'm glad it ends on Zero Tolerance because Zero Tolerance is just a straight up ripper. I love when an album ends like that. So it's good. It's a really good record. So I'd mirror yours. I would give it a 3.5. Could this be a 4 someday if I kept listening to it? It's possibly because I said this album's a grower for sure. Like I don't know. That's pretty much all I got to say about it.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I agree with a lot of what you said. I would definitely give this album probably a 4, even a 4.5. And I think mostly because of how much it surprised me at their age. A lot of bands putting out albums in their later years or reunion type part of their career, they just don't hit. And I feel like they wrote some of their best material that they've ever written on this album. There's just some really, really good stuff. And like I said, I feel like it could have came right after Euphoria, where that was peak Anthrax. Yeah, I like the album a lot. And for this album, it was nostalgic for me to hear them playing in a style that was really reminiscent of that era. And it was good. Worship music, it felt like that, what I was talking about, like that retread, older band trying to write new stuff in the old way. It just didn't work. Speaking of Belladonna, I mean, obviously his voice isn't the same as it was back then.
No.
He's singing in a lower key, a lower register, but I feel that it's almost better. I feel like people who maybe were annoyed with Belladonna's voice back then would probably, maybe appreciate it more or maybe like. So we're going to give each other our next assignments for episode 5.
Before we get into it, I would just say, yeah, the idea I had was, I really want to do some non-metal, and we talked about doing that. We talked about maybe getting around 5 under our belt or something like that beforehand. So
Yeah.
I got a couple of non-metal that I really want to do, but I thought, that might be a little whiplash. So that's why I said to you, let's transition out of it. So let's do something that's something metal, or metal adjacent or something like that.
Yeah. So I'll let you tell me my assignment first.
I'm pretty sure you are aware of this record as I listen to it. I'm pretty sure you are aware of it. 1987, the second album by Faith No More.
Oh.
Introduce Yourself.
That's very much. That's way. I don't even think that's metal.
Yeah, I was a little wrong because after I already made this decision, and the first time I was listening to this, I was like, oh, this is less metal adjacent than I thought. But there is a couple real metal songs on there. But yeah, you're getting off easy again. 37 minutes. So, but that's, par for the course from me usually. We talked about not doing, focused tracks anymore because I feel it kind of takes away from the listening experience. So I'm just going to say what my favorite songs on the record are: Chinese Arithmetic, R&R, and the Crab Song.
Of course, I'm aware of who these guys are. Faith No More, huge band in the 90s with The Real Thing. Obviously, that album was...
This was their previous singer before that.
I do remember that. They had a different singer. I thought they only had the one album, though, but they had 2 albums with him.
Yep.
Okay, this is going to be interesting. I've almost bought this album used a couple times when I saw it, but I didn't pull the trigger on it. I probably have listened to it, but it's probably been a very long time. And I guarantee, I know for sure that I didn't listen to it a lot. I probably only listened to it maybe a few times.
With me. Okay.
All right. So my pick for you is a band. This is their 5th album. This is a band from where King Diamond is from. And there's a connection here to King. This band is from Denmark. I don't know if you know who they are, but it is the Volbeat record. And this is Outlaw Gentlemen and Shady Ladies. Song-wise, This album is so fantastic. It is so good. It's just really, really great songs. And one of the songs, Room 24, I don't know if you can see that. It says featuring King Diamond. King is friends with these guys. All their albums are kind of themes. They're not like all connected like a story, but they're all kind of about real people from the Old West and stuff like that. So like
Okay.
Hart is a real person, and Lola Montez is a real person, and there's songs about both of them, especially Lola Montez. You can actually look up her history and the song, kind of goes with it. So it's kind of fun in that respect. And they're just a fun band, but they are considered kind of groove metal-ish as far as their Wikipedia description.
I'm saving so much of what I have to say into my first impressions because I can tell you, and I'm not giving away whether it's positive or negative. It could be either.
Now, unfortunately, this album is almost an hour, but I think the songs go by pretty good.
Well, let me tell you, you set the floor at kind of hinting that with the word groove metal. So you were setting the bar so low. This was a happy surprise. I was getting ready to get up and walk out, is what I was getting ready to do.
Okay, good. Because, well, like I said, I don't know we talk about genre splitting and, sub genre stuff. I don't know if I would say this is groove metal, but I get why people would consider it. It has an element of groove metal, but I think it's something else. That's just a piece of what it is. It's not the full thing,
Mhm.
So that's your assignment. I'm going to take
All
my
right.
assignment. I'm going to listen to that. You got an assignment.